Hello. Welcome along, everyone. Kirsty Salisbury here from the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. It is a beautiful sunny day here in Auckland, New Zealand. We're coming to you live on Facebook, live on the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page, on YouTube, and just want to welcome you all in as you're coming in. Just take a little bit of time here for people to come in. Today, we have got such a treat. I've been talking to Jacob Cooper, who's just released his brand new book, Life After Breath. It's a really good one. And I've chatting with Jacob, and we are so blessed to be able to have him come on in today. He's going to be sharing more about his book. Before we get into that, I'm just going to do a quick little formal introduction. I'm not the most formal person, you know that. However, Jacob Cooper is a near-death experiencer. He's an amazing story. He shares about the insight and mystery of life on the other side of the veil. He's a certified Reiki master, a certified hypnotherapist, and he specializes in past life regression therapy. As a psychotherapist, Jacob works with individuals, with groups, and families in managing emotional barriers, promoting improved wellness and resiliency. Jacob's experience provides others with the opportunity to experience past life memories and assisting in the development of self-awareness and finding meaning within their experiences. That's amazing, isn't it? So today we have got such a treat chatting to Jacob here. So Jacob Cooper, I'd love to welcome you on, and time to say hello to the troops.
Thank you for having me, Kirsty. It's an honor to be here and ushering the new year with you and your viewers, and to really introduce myself and my new book that just came out. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I say thank you for being here. Hold up your book. Show the world. I mean, I know how much hard work's gone into this.
So for those of you, and if you could see it, this is my book, and it's hard to see with the lighting, but the title of my new book is Life After Breath by Jacob Cooper, LCSW, which stands for Licensed Clinical Social Worker. And my book is a memoir, which we'll get into, on my own near-death experience and subsequent transformative experiences. And it's been endorsed by Dr. Raymond Moody, who coined the term near-death experience in 1975, and he's on my cover, if you could see. And Anita Morjani is also an endorsement for the book as well. So I'm quite honored to be behind and support of great company. Yeah.
Definitely. I know it's been a bit of a journey. You've got some great names on there. We have put a link. I have put a link. If you want to purchase Jacob's book, you can go along. There's a link in the Facebook page. I will be updating the Instagram and the other social media platforms with that link a little bit later on. But Life After Breath, How a Brush with Fatality Gave Me a Glimpse of Immortality. Highly recommend that you get your hands on there. We've got some promos coming up. There's the chance to get some mediumship readings. There's the chance to join a book club. We've got some giveaways. Jacob will be touching on those a little bit down the track. Jacob, I want to start right at the beginning. What is a bit of your journey? You had a near-death experience around age 3. Tell us about that.
Yes. So at the age of 3, I had an upper respiratory virus called pertussis, or generically known as whooping cough. And at the age of 3, I didn't know that I had that, but from this virus, I suffocated, and whooping cough left untreated could be fatal to an infant. And so from this virus, I went to a park and I suffocated on top of a ladder, ironically to a slide. And ironically, when you think of the slide and the ladder, you think of the biblical Jacob from Genesis and Jacob's ladder. And after losing everything and suffocating in all my parts of my body, including my brain, cracking and shutting down, once my brain cracked in half, that's when God came in, and all those other forces of either side, from angelic beings to spiritual guides to an understanding of soul's purpose to awareness of what I label as God, or what we call, everyone has a different term. So it was, from losing everything, I regained and found insight into everything. It was quite a profound, transformative experience that I hold on to, 3 decades later almost.
So. So you have memory of that at 3 years old? You can actually remember the event happening?
Yeah. As a psychotherapist, I I look at it the way that trauma works. Something as profound as suffocation. And anyone's ever suffocated, that's how usually how people go. Is their breathing becomes more difficult, and they tend to suffocate, and that's what happened to me with whooping cough. And so, with trauma, you normally remember the event, but not only the event, but the events that happened a little bit before, and kind of relating to it after. I remember some parts of my infancy and childhood, but very little. But that profound of a traumatic experience stays with you. But not only that, the euphoria of what happened and how I had something out of this world kind of redefined, age to me, in a sense that I look at, when I had my experience, it wasn't from that 3-year-old physical Jake, was from the eyes of an eternal soul far beyond this body, and that will go far on afterwards. And so this was a soul level experience.
Yeah, wow. Wow, it's amazing. I love it. I just want to acknowledge some people that are here. We've got some beautiful comments coming in. If you are here on the live stream, let's make this really interactive. You can ask your questions for Jacob. You can send out some love, some highs, some welcomes. I can see we've got Colleen, we've got Esther, Lorianne, we've got Patrick there. A lot of people here joining. Having conversations to each other, so that's okay. If you are here, let's make it really interactive. This is your chance to talk to Jacob about his book. Lorianne says, I've already got the book. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Lorianne. Love to hear how that's going, whether you've had a chance to read it, because it's brand spanking new.
Yeah.
So we're talking about that, Jacob. We're talking about how you had a very conscious experience because you're age 3.
Yeah, that experience was more real than almost anything that I've ever done. There was nothing kind of stopping me from engaging with what was in front of me. And I kind of look at the other side as just another tick above this realm. From what I experienced and seeing my body, on the ground after going down the slide and suffocating. The other side is heaven is literally right in front of us. And I was able to really see an endless sea of angelic beings all around me and spiritual guides. And yes, my soul, and I do talk about this in the book a little bit more, did travel to far out places, but really, the other side is right in front of us, and they're working with us in this thin veil, between two worlds. So, but it was quite aware. But, I had a natural skeptic in me, even when experiencing that. And what I learned is, when you do cross over, it's not like you just totally become this transformed being. What's in front of you transforms, the realm that you're in transforms, and your awareness transforms. But that inner dialogue, some of the fears, some of the emotions, some of the thought processing are still very much there. Now, for me, that was a lot more supported and less isolated that you have within this experience, in a sense that you are never alone. And it's hard to really feel that and experience that as you have a profound connection beyond just the personality and the self. So it's pretty hard to feel isolated there, in a warm, comforting, euphoric environment.
Quite a lot to comprehend at the age of 3, isn't it? Did you, I don't even know how to explain this. When it all happened, obviously you've got a bit of a physical journey to go through because you're a bit injured, but understanding that you've just met with spirit bodies, you've been outside of your body, you've experienced so much which is outside of this realm. How do you deal with that when you're 3 years old?
Yeah, looking back on it, I look at, as a therapist, I look at different stage developmental theories, such as Freud, Piaget, Erickson, that kind of stuff, and you have different stages of development. But when I look at all those stages have to deal with basically your body and your age from 0 going forward. And so when you have an awareness of an experience beyond this realm and a personality and a memory of yourself that goes beyond just the infant that was just born into this world, it was quite complicated and complex. And what I'll say is, within my book, I try to make my experience as real and authentic as I can, because I think it runs in parallels with so many of our experiences. We live in this body, we go to the other side, we come back. but there's always a part of us somehow, some way that has a little bit of memory of that, call it deja vu, or just kind of like a shakeup period, and sometimes grief and loss and all these other things could expedite that. But as more and more people are experiencing this, they're taking a little bit of away from that amnesia that you might have as you get off the shores from the other side and you come to this land, in this lifetime.
Mm. I love that you bring up deja vu. I think it's such an interesting thing. I personally get lots of deja vu, and I've heard all sorts of theories around whether that means that we're on track or whether we're connected enough or whatever that means. But I have also heard, and I can't tell you where from, so nothing to back this comment, but I've also heard that near-death experiences potentially have more deja vu than others. Have you ever come across anything like this?
I am personally not a near-death experience researcher, but I will talk from my own experience, just to keep honest. In the book, I talk about this a lot. I would say the scary and frustrating part of having this experience was a keen awareness to events and having premonitions before they would happen. And so, for instance, I'll give an example. Was one time I grew up, keeping all the kosher dietary laws and being Jewish. And one time I went with a friend of mine to a restaurant in the middle of my town, but it was late at night and I was using the restroom way in back of the bathroom. And I had a vision of my father walking in the store. And I don't know how he was able to find me. But and then lo and behold, I opened up my eyes and he was there. And this would happen to me time and time again, particularly when it came to people passing on. And I guess having a near-death experience, I have a sensitivity, for loss and, when not loss, but when people are about to move on or have a rebirth period and go back home. So don't get scared. I'm not going to give any predictions or anything like that. But I would say I almost look at deja vu and premonitions as a way to kind of understand linear time and redefine time, in the sense that in a way we've kind of been here before, see things before, and many times we're just going through those motions and it kind of takes away past, present, future as just one unraveling moment, which is not something for the left brain to really have a field day with. It's a bit overwhelming.
There's so much in there, isn't there? And I'm aware that I've just sort of gone down a rabbit hole. We're here to talk about your book, Jacob, but I just find this so interesting. I know that when we get you back, we will potentially talk a lot more on a lot more varied topics.
Yeah.
Some questions coming through. You do have the opportunity to go and get the book from the Facebook page. There's a link. I'll update social media with that link to get the book a little bit later after this live video. We will be having Jacob back at a later time to share his full in-depth near-death experience. So that's the type of interviews that I normally do, is I hear from experiences what they went through, what they experienced, what they learned. It just didn't seem today like the type of, I didn't feel we could give it the, gosh, my words are mumbled. Like I said yesterday,
the full justice and the full,
the full justice. We want to give Jacob's experience the full everything, make it the big show. So we will be doing that at a slightly later date, which is super exciting, and I can't wait to do that. So that answers one of the questions, can we hear your experience? That is coming, but we know that Jacob had this experience when he was 3 years old, falling from that ladder, cracking his head, having this beautiful out-of-body experience. I know we've touched on that very lightly. So what I want to do, Jacob, is talk about this book. How did you get from 3 years old falling off a ladder to writing this amazing book? And I know that you're doing incredible work, that you're helping a lot of people.
Yeah.
How does it all connect?
Just to preface, it was a ladder to a slide, and I was pushed down by higher angelic forces, after suffocating on the slide. But regarding your question, part of the inspiration, and this kind of deals with a later chapter in my life, was a lot of support from angels in human form. I've had a lot of people, and this comes within the book, who have just randomly come up to me in the lowest moments of my life and told me that they saw me speaking in front of a crowd, or they saw that I would be writing. And so, I look at, intuitive messages, almost kind of like, angelic beings coming in front of you and telling you what you need to do. But ultimately, I decided to expedite the book in terms of its release to this moment. And everything right here, right now, was an impetus behind whether you look at my title and the timing of the book with what people are going through. Um, in 1993, when I suffocated due to whooping cough, and I had nothing and experienced everything, a big drive of my book was to speak to the times where there's a similar kind of upper respiratory infection going on and people feeling very deprived of life force and people feeling that they've got nothing to hold on to, and to being able to give people some insight, inspiration, and higher wisdom when they feel lost in their path, they feel that they're not even on a path and don't know, kind of where to go, and to understand that this experience is not an experience of suffering, but that of a higher guided experience, and that of a purposeful experience, and not a random encounter of just masochistic suffering, that some people could kind of see. And so I decided to have the pain that I was feeling and my clients were feeling to define a greater sense of purpose to give over to other people. So I just want to give back what I was given at a young age back to other people as much as I can, and to restore that life, to restore that breath when that might be deprived or absence from those who are grieving and those who are hurting around the globe.
Wonderful. Now, I know you do some different types of work. You do some psychotherapy work, you do some past life regression work. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. You mentioned your clients there. What is a client to you? How do you help these people? And
Mhm.
how is this experience endorsing that, I suppose?
Yeah. I come from a lineage of 3 psychotherapists within my family. Um, and so from a young age, I was brought up in a world where it was important to be empathic. Empathic was a muscle, empathic was a strength. And having a near death experience, much like other near death experiencers, we're drawn to service, we're drawn to helping people, especially in connecting to the angels. I kind of saw this lifetime as an earth school to be a guide, to be an angel. And obviously, it starts with the self, and the better you are, the better we are. But ultimately, I saw that, you know, from connecting to the soul, the ultimate collateral and measurement of this lifetime is a ripple effect that we leave and that we have on others. And it doesn't have to be speaking in front of hundreds of people. It could just be simply holding the door, having a smile on your face, but having those outer ripples of impact and currency. And that ripple effect, to me, is the ultimate currency of our being. And when we see ourselves as not just a physical being, but an inner being, we see that as not only something nice, but a responsibility to be our brothers and sisters' keepers. As I recognize as a young child in a park, that we're all just children in God's playground who have this experience in a playground. And we're here to unify each other. But I'm very inspired to work with people from the ground up because I fully acknowledge that we are multidimensional beings and not just energetic beings, not just psychological beings, not just social beings, but we're a holistic being. And the more tools and the more avenues that I could provide to clients, the better positionality that my clients are, not just kind of unidimensional forms of assistance to meet their needs. And especially right now, we need the Air Force, we need the Navy, we need all types of parts of the Army to kind of address the needs from the ground up.
Definitely. I know that you do past life regression work, and that's a tool to help people within their current moments. You talk a lot about resiliency as well. How does this past life regression stuff work with
Yeah.
improving our current life?
And so everything, almost anything that I do, and the biggest impetus was this experience at age 3. That was my biggest classroom in life, and people taught me a lot. Parents certainly taught me a lot, but that's really what I go by. And so I had some traumatic but past life recollections within my near-death experience that I talk a little bit about, and that inspired me to really help people. Because the number one question that people have is, what is my life purpose? I think people are truly acting on what they are told they are, what they are taught they are, but not in actuality who they truly are. And the more that we're able to get in touch with that part of us past this personality, past this body, but rather a timeless, unlimited, being. I think the more that we could fine tune the pitch that we have and the groove of the soul that we have within our lifetime. And so I look at past life regression as, in a way, almost kind of like a spa for the soul or soul therapy, or in a sense that people come for me for psychotherapy. That's the emotions, that's the mind, so the social part. I think I look at this as the higher consciousness of people, to really utilize that as a navigating force. Now, I have legs to stand on, because normally when people will come to me, I could say, you know what, you would benefit from working on this first with me in therapy, or first in Reiki. I usually see past life regression or hypnosis on the last stop on this train, when you tried everything, and the subconscious, which is every thought, deed, and action that goes beyond this lifetime, and it's almost like the internet. It's just this big web. And the conscious, which is every thought, deed, and action that we're aware of in this moment, are not in harmony. That's usually when hypnotherapy could be quite effective. And past life regression is one of those modalities of hypnosis that I utilize. Stuff. So, but you know,
Is that something? Actually, I'll just start that question again. When you were 3 years old, you had this experience. Do you think that you came back with the gifts to be able to do this type of work? Was this something that you always felt drawn to?
I speak about this in my book. I remembered other lifetimes, particularly lifetimes that I was of service, that I was of help. And so I do believe from completion we begin, right? And the last lifetime I lived, it's more in the book, was quite traumatic. And after the near-death experience, I would have a lot of flashbacks to that. And it was a lifetime in which I gave up and I took my own life. And this has been attested by numerous psychics throughout my own life. And so why I do past life regression work is, plenty of people think that life is happening to them, but past life regression, we understand life is happening for them. We understand that everything that we're being faced is a message to be embraced, so that they're no longer needed to be repeated. And so this is a part of this earth school, because once we're over there, we get it all. Part of it here is acting on faith and acting on awareness to integrate that lesson, so that our soul is able to evolve into even higher, more infinite dimensions than even before. And so I kind of look at it a way to kind of foster resiliency, to kind of look at hardships and difficulties, past, kind of like, if you look at a supermodel when they're having a shoot, they don't look at the camera, they look through it. And so when we're faced with challenges, I want to help people to look through the challenges, not just directly at face value of it. So
I absolutely love this. As a near-death experiencer myself, I don't know. I really appreciate what you're saying, because we can get so caught up in the spiritual side of life. But for me, I talk a lot about the gift of crisis, and about how our hardships can be the greatest things that ever happen to us. And they're not fun, they're not easy, they're things that we have to go through. And I just think it's so wonderful to actually hear that resilience message coming through, because I believe in it so strongly. Like you said, we are here. I can't remember your exact words, but life is a gift to us. We're not just, why does this happen to me? It doesn't, it happens for me. And I totally agree with what you're saying there. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
right, it takes away the victimizational mentality
Yes.
that it's very so easy to have. And spirituality with practicality is quite useful. We're able to really apply some of the wisdom in everyday life circumstances, especially in the most time and needed moments. I think that's when we'll start seeing real practical, changes in our lives.
Definitely. I absolutely love that. In terms of purpose, you touched on it very briefly. Did you feel that you had any set purpose? When I came back from my experience, I knew I'd write a book. Did you have that? Is that how the book is here today? Is because you always knew that that was going to happen?
Yeah, there's two types of near-death experiencers: those that have a near NDE, and they are told that they have to come back, from higher guides or forces, or called Jesus or God. But for me, I had a choice, and I was able to really have a lot of premonitions of the work that I would be doing, as a healer. But the work that I was doing was not about myself. That was never what it was about. Rather, it was to empower other people. And first, to empower others, you have to be empowered yourself. But the empowerment was really to give over this experience and not to have a monopolization or to hide heaven, but rather to showcase it to others and just, making a gentle tap on their shoulders to kind of look in a different direction. But ultimately, it has to be experienced through an open mind and an open heart and a firsthand experience to create knowing versus faith and belief in another's experience.
I love it. Tell us about the writing journey itself. How was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have said, 10 years, 10, 15 years ago, you're going to be writing a book with a publishing company and, having the same agent as Eckhart Tolle, Neil Donald Walsh, I would tell you to go take a hike. I would not believe that. And why I say that is, this is in the book. I come from quite humble beginnings. I started off in non-accredited courses in a community college for writing and for reading at the lowest possible tier, of the college. And I got up every morning, rain, snow, shine, first thing in the morning, and I would just practice and practice, writing after writing after writing. Eventually I was able to get better. But, and actually I'm going to be having, late February, kind of like a book club, in a way, just kind of like a tutorial with some of the teachings that I have to give over to other people and writing their own empowered story. But in a sense, for future writers or aspiring writers who might be listening, what I will say is there is a lot before the books hit the shelf, or in this case, COVID era, the books hit the internet. Some books are in bookshelves, but there goes a lot to it. And I'm sure you could attest to that. But ultimately, when you get organized, when you have an idea, when you are methodical, when you're scheduled, 200 pages is not written in one sitting, but one page leads to 2 pages, leads to 3 pages, leads to 10. So I think if you have a big idea, it's mapping it out and breaking it down. And eventually you could have yourself a book. It's not that complicated. I think if I can do it, as someone who really struggled with their writing and reading, I think it just takes discipline, determination, consistency, and a topic that you're passionate about. So
yeah, it's great. I hear a lot of people get a lot of healing through writing a book. If you're watching the video with us today and you're thinking about writing a book, I highly recommend it. It's not going to be easy. I will put that out there. It is a very, very hard thing to do. As Jacob, it can take quite a bit. But that determination, again, it's that resiliency popping up again of 1 page leads to 2, leads to 10, leads to a book.
Yeah.
It's just that continued effort, I suppose.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Did you find that you received some kind of healing through writing the book?
Yeah. Well, you're very intuitive. You're a great interviewer. It was quite cathartic to get it done. In a sense, why I say cathartic is so much of this book was very personal. It was personal in the sense that I decided to take that route because plenty of times the position of having near-death experience is that you're othered or people can't relate and they feel bad about themselves. And so I wanted to make this personal so that other people could relate to it and thus be empowered with their own spiritual gifts and connection, and to really understand that I'm just like you. I'm no different. I just happen to have a bit of a shakeup period, and whatever I have to talk about is not mine, it's ours, and we're all infinitely connected to it. And so I think really it's one day at a time, fine-tuning that great inner world that we're forever a part of in our own way. And there's plenty of modalities that we could talk about till we're blue in the face to get to that point, but it's always there. It's never left us, and it's never too late to come back home. And so we don't have to wait until we die to come back home. It's all within the depths of our heart. It never leaves us. But the one thing I learned is a balance of effort and guidance. You put forward effort, intention, but within this book, I think that this book comes from, and I don't want to sound egotistical, but it comes from God. It comes from a higher place. I just kind of was the doormat of it, or just the channel. And so I think an important part of writing is it's kind of like painting, it's drawing, it's just a creation, through the filter of the brain. that you channel. So.
Absolutely. We've got some questions coming in. I'm going to get to those very, very soon. I just want to ask you one more question before I hand over to our audience.
Please ask away. Yes.
It's again, and not a very spiritual one, but it's a question that I have for you because it was such a big deal for me personally. How did you feel in that moment when your book went public, when people could actually read your story, could read about everything you'd invested into? In terms, like, my ego really got in the way, right? Not in a good way. I was terrified. It was almost shutting me down, and I had to really push through to get to the point where I could release what I wanted to say. What was that moment like for you?
Sure. Whenever you write a personal memoir, it's quite vulnerable. It's difficult. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's not easy. There's a roller, kind of like it's a roller coaster. We have a lot of highs and a lot of lows. I think having a good support system is key. But what helped me was actually I saw, a documentary in ancient Egypt, right as my book was about to come out on Netflix. I forget the name of it, but I saw that people were kind of talking about the tombs and the mummies that they found in ancient Egypt and the different writings that they had on it and the different life stories. And within the ancient Egyptian culture, death is front and center of it, and every moment is a preparation, for it. And I recognize that, you know what, you don't have to wait to that point to send your message, to spread your word, to spread your essence. You could do that in the flesh, and that's the beauty of it. And once I had that, I understood that everything that I was feeling was just emotion. They're in motion. They're going to go. But this book, this experience, is going to last hopefully far beyond when I leave this planet. And that's a tool of resiliency that I have within the near-death experience and being a spiritual being. The more that we're able to be cognizant of our own eternity, that we can never be destroyed, hurt, damaged, only some temporary turbulence, the more that we're able to override, anything that we walk into, anything difficult, from holding on to that point. Because I do believe what's inside of us is far greater than anything that we'll ever face in front of us, other than a spouse, right? So,
I love it. Yeah, but I totally agree. I believe that we have everything we need to get through everything that presents itself to us in our life. Even though that can be really awful, uncomfortable, painful, horrible, I do believe we have what it takes to get through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, we're going to head on over. We've got quite a few people here. I want to say hi to everyone that's joined. Hi to Paula. Hi to Ellen. There's a couple of people popping in and out. Now, some questions we've got. There was one there. As a 3-year-old, were you able to tell adults what had happened to you at the time?
No. To this day, I struggle to tell adults what happened.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you could attest with this. When I had my experience, I very much held it within. It was very much internalized, suppressed, repressed, at times you call it. But it was always there on my radar. What got me to own my experience and talk about it more so publicly, and I speak about this in my book, was when I picked up a book by Betty Eadie, who wrote the New York Times bestseller book, Embraced by the Light. And it was gifted to me by a family friend who is a real angel. And after reading Betty's experience, a light bulb went off in me, and I was like, wow, I had this experience. I was able to put a verbiage and a diagnosis past it. I didn't know how to verbalize it. And so that empowered me, and it created more universality behind my experience. And then a couple of years later, I was able to talk about it publicly. But it was probably over 20 years, that I went public about it. So with an experience in life, there's an internal experience that you have, and then there's a portrayal to the world. And the hard part is finding ways to match the internal, because to describe all these things in limiting words is hard, but that's our biggest weapon that we have here. That's the most that we can do here for other people. That's what I try to utilize as best as I can.
It's so interesting how often this comes up, though, and for myself as well. I waited 27 years. How often we don't have the words, we don't have the understanding, we can't accept it. It's just so much easier to not talk about it? So I love that. Great question there, Colleen. Thank you. Just running through the questions, you can pick it up on Kindle Unlimited. Alexa will read it to you. That's good news, isn't it? We have a fantastic question here. How do you tell the difference between past and future lives?
So that's a really good question.
Uh-huh.
I know in the 60s, they kind of got bored of past life regression or past life therapy, and they were more so concerned, with future. But in a sense, when you're there, I do believe the soul has awareness. I personally can't say. I've had, some ideas of where I might be, in a future life, but I think the soul has discernment when you're able to go into those of what you've already technically, you could say, experienced or is in that kind of or in the past, although it's all unfolding, and what's to come. But I certainly look at this lifetime as an opportunity to have free will to alter the course of that, future life and to really let go of some of the baggage that we might be holding on to from that technical past life. So I think the better we're able to utilize this moment in this lifetime, it creates a much different trajectory for what our next step would be in our next embodiment, where that might be. So.
Thank you. That was a great question from Patrick. If you were given the chance, Jacob, or somebody was given the chance to either do a past life regression or, I guess, looking into their future upcoming life, almost like a reading, I suppose, what do you think would hold the most value, or are they completely different?
Yeah.
They've got different times for different things.
I really think past life regression is a wonderful tool. Why I say that is, I think really so much of us have lost a clear connection with ourself and our purpose. And, past life regression is not only a great way to uncover that, but also to kind of formulate rapport and engagement with the eternal part of ourselves, the part that goes on. And I think it's a great tool to move forward from any bit of suffering, any lingering sensation that we might have. I do see us all as a hot air balloon, but when we have bricks that we might not knowingly hold on to, that could maybe potentially bog us down. And so I view it as quite a liberating experience, as well as something that could really enhance people's paths and purpose to really understand, some of the patterns that we might be recreating that we don't even know about on so many different levels, whether that's physical, emotional, social, family, career, and it's a great insight tool.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting, isn't it? So many directions that we could talk and go. We've got some beautiful comments. You're doing a great job explaining your experience and your life's work. So that's nice. People are loving this. Another question is, to what extent do you ask for guidance from your higher power to inspire the writing day by day? And if this is the case, in which ways do you sense that the higher power is the driving force?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one book that certainly inspired me when I was in my early 20s was actually gifted by the same person who gave me Embraced by the Light. I can't say owe her my afterlife because that's in this book, but steak dinner, I don't know, something. She was unbelievable. But one author that inspired me, who we share the same agent as, is Neil Donald Walsh. And he wrote a wonderful book called Conversations with God. And I look at that as a prime example. When you do write, it's not like, God will take the pen and just write it for you. But you could really tap into a part of yourself, really connected to an unlimited higher intelligence, higher consciousness within your work. And sometimes, and I know you could probably attest to this, you're reading, you're writing, and you go, geez, I wrote that, that came from me. And really, it technically does, but sometimes when you're very much open, it comes from another place. What I would do to kind of help this out was, meditation is a very versatile term. My form of meditation in the best possible way is going for long distance runs. For me, that is out in the woods, and I would write and connect and kind of heighten my state. And a lot of athletes even have, I know Billie Jean King talks about this, like out of body experience that she had. A lot of athletes kind of, when you're in that kind of heightened endorphin state, you really almost access, past your body and higher, kind of leave for a little bit. So for me, running was a great tool to just kind of clarify, okay, this chap, the chapters wouldn't come from me, would come to me, through me, it would just be kind of channeled, and I would see it in my runs. I would just go over everything and then, hit to the keyboard. So.
Oh, that's really interesting. I have a very similar thing when I'm in the gym. I can push myself quite hard in the gym, and when it gets really hard and my body's screaming, give up, we don't have to do this, I literally am able to, I guess you call kind of separate, like you just talked about with your running, separate, and I can go, okay, my body's hurting, here's what I want, that's not really real, and I'm able to push through quite a lot. I also talk to my father who has passed, and it's just a really interesting, it's sort of like this place that I go to. I don't really know how to describe it. I'm not doing very well with this, but it's interesting.
Heightened, altered state of consciousness.
Yeah, we can remove ourselves from what's happening physically. There's so many other levels of things. And I'm not talking it's like an out-of-body experience. There's nothing significant to happen. I'm still running. I'm still feeling it. But at the same time, I'm disconnected from what I'm feeling. And I think that that's available for so many of us in so many everyday situations. Mm-hmm. And I find it really interesting that you talk about running as your thing, because for me, it's about exercising as well. That just gets me in a totally different state, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think
that's important?
Do you think we can all tap into that guided help, I suppose, with writing, where you talked about how you can write something and you think, how did I do that? I didn't do that, but I did that. Can we all tap into this if somebody's thinking about writing a book? Can they get some help, do you think?
Absolutely. And, I suggest you follow me on Facebook to really learn more about the course that I'm offering. It's a Facebook Live course, and I might kind of develop this more kind of like a monthly mentoring kind of thing for potential writers. I do believe, and this is a front quote of my book, and I'll read this to you. This is by Wayne Dyer, and Wayne and I have a cool connection that I talk a little bit about in the book. But his quote is, "Don't die with your music still in you."
Yes.
In a sense that everyone has a story, everyone has a message. There are drivers on so many different highways in different parts of the world that I believe that if your suffering is just held within and not given to someone else, it doesn't live out its full potentiality. I do believe we are meant to go through things, not just for us, but for other people. And we talk about guides and spiritual guides on the other earth. There are guides who maybe not had a carnation, but a lot of them did. And so when you're able to have those experiences, you're able to understand what it's like to drive on those similar pathways and similar highways to get people to make more skillful, more empowered decision based not off of their fears or not off their patterns, but rather higher guidance. And so I look at a book that's kind of symbolic with the life that we could live, where we're able to not solely rely like Mr. Atlas and everything, emotion that we have, and to be able to open up, for guidance or answers, kind of past our fears, and that will allow us to really navigate the tides a little bit easier.
Excellent. It's so exciting. I know there's so many things out there that need to be done, but fear's holding us back, or limiting self-belief that we can't do it. But there is help available. Well, I believe there's help available for all of us. I've got a question here for you. What do your parents or siblings think about your book and your experience? Have they read it?
They're probably reading it right now as we speak, to answer your question.
Yep, it's so new.
I speak about this because I come from a very much traditional, academic, intellectual, kind of religious background, and so I was always kind of different, right? I kind of saw things a little bit differently, a bit of a rebel, and it's kind of like a lot of Uranus kind of ruled in planets, which I was kind of here to kind of shake a lot of traditions and kind of organizations a little bit up to kind of have people more on new ground. But I think this book is a great way. When I first wrote this, I was quite fearful of what they might think, being that it was vulnerable and some parts, were personal. But I actually think when you're writing it not from a place of a vendetta or to get angry or victimization kind of thing, rather you come from it from a lesson kind of perspective, and you partake in ownership, and you try to find higher wisdom from it, the people around you who love you the most will take that well and will be able to understand you better. Um, and sometimes it's hard to verbalize that face to face. And I think this book is a great way, if they do read it, hopefully, to kind of put some of the pieces of the puzzle together that I might have known, that I thought they knew, but they might not have known.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's so interesting. What did they say when you first told them? Because you were 3, you said you held it in for around about 20 years.
Mhm.
How did they react?
Well, certainly they remembered, what happened, and it was quite
Yeah.
scary, and it's quite a contagious virus. My brother, about a week and a half later, a couple of days later, actually joined me in the hospital bed, and he was quite
Oh,
sick too. So it was quite a long time ago. This is 1993. I can't say that they were very surprised, given that every single sibling in my family grew up under the same household, the same background, the same schools, and I was just such an outlier to their. So there had to have been something in between that happened with same food, same clothes, same school, as to why I was different. And I think it kind of allowed them, especially my father, who's in mental health and as a therapist, to kind of understand the why a little bit more, and to kind of embrace that a little bit easier. So
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I can only imagine the journey. I know that there was some for me as well, but you'd only touch on the surface of things like this in interviews here. There's so much that goes on in those years and that time. And yeah, I take my hat off to you because I know that you would have been through so much. And I know that
yeah,
writing this book, it all seems
it's
so easy when it's finished, doesn't it?
it's not easy. And immediately after having my near-death experience, I telepathically understood that my parents would not understand it at the time.
Yeah,
And I
right.
couldn't be able to verbalize it. At the time, it wasn't right. It wasn't ready. And I think part of it is a stigma. And part of it is also you're 3 years old, and there's an external processing of life that it's just so overwhelming that you can't really put into words. And so it takes time between the instrument and the soul to really form a harmony, and the inner to represent the outer,
Mm,
the outer to represent the inner. So it took some
mm,
time for me to find some parallels between the two worlds, the inner and the outer. But we're making progress. But the greatest advice that I would have is when you write this book, when you write any vulnerable pieces, there's going to be 1 stars on Amazon. There's going to be YouTube comments doubting, a traumatic, very real experience, and that's not easy to take, particularly the degree of it. But the more that you kind of focus on um, the ideal avatar, the person that would be helped by this, the person that could be assisted by this, and you focus on that, you tend to attract that more. And eventually all
mm,
that stuff kind of runs itself out because it's not personal. Those people, for them, it's a threat. Anything new is a threat, and that means that they have to
mm,
change. And they'd rather tear down a lot of people, disempowered others. So it's part of
mm.
the territory, but the oohs far outweigh the ahs far outweigh the oohs in this kind of work.
Yes,
So
yes. I love it. You have done such a fabulous job, Jacob. It's amazing. Tell us, I know you've got a few promo things. Laura, you've got some reading opportunities with Laura. Do you want to share us a bit about that?
yeah, so Laura Worcester is a well-known international intuitive and medium. She works with most notably closely John Holland, Janet Nohavik from New Jersey, The Journey Within. She's
She's
fantastic.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
for anyone who sends me to my email, jacobcooperlcsw@gmail.com, and it's all on my webpage at jacoblcooper.com. You just click on the email link. If you send me a screenshot of a verified purchase and verified review by January 25th, you're eligible for a free 30-minute phone reading wherever you are in the world with Laura, and that will be announced. You just have to give me your first and last name with the email so that I could contact you, and thus Laura's team could contact you for the reading. So it must be a verified purchase on Amazon of the book, and a review, 1 star, 5 star, whatever. But more 5 stars
Hopefully
always.
five.
But those are important. And the other one that I'm doing is a friend of mine. She's a college professor, at a college that I actually went to. I didn't know her at the time. She's having a book club for my book. It's free of charge. It meets, I'm just looking up the dates here. The book club is free of charge, and it will all be, should be posted within this, but it meets Eastern Standard Time, January 24th, January 21st, and January 28th. My time, 7 to 8 p.m. Those are Thursdays, Eastern Standard Time, and I will be there to answer and field any of your questions as you're reading the book and anything that you might have, because this book, comes with a lot of gains, but I think part of it too is being able to be available to answer any questions that could help out, in different parts of the book that you're in, to kind of ease the experience. So.
That's fabulous. We will be putting all the links. There's already a couple of links there on the Facebook page, the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page. We will also put them into the comments in the YouTube. So that's the Kirsty Salisbury YouTube channel. There's lots of information coming, but Jacob, I just want to say a huge congratulations. Let's all give Jacob a clap. You can do that by doing a like. You can clap out loud. Yeah. However we do it these days. We're not on Zoom, so we can't do the one there. But let's really just encourage Jacob and all the hard work that he's put in. Say huge congratulations. And I cannot wait to have you back later on in 2021 to hear more about your experience itself. That's when we'll delve into much more detail about what took place. This has been quite an oversight sort of approach, I suppose, but it's been more about your book today. Thank you, Esther. She says, love that. Lorianne, clap, clap, clap. Patrick, thank you both with lots of clapping emojis. If you don't know, I love emojis. That's why they're all over everything I post. If you're in the Let's Talk Near Death community, it's emoji central in there. So I love that, Patrick. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You can find more details about Jacob at his website. Again, I'm putting the links into everything after this call. Lorianne, I know you had a post there you'd love to connect about a past life regression. The information will be there. I highly recommend getting in touch with Jacob. Does amazing work. And Jacob, thank you so much. We look forward to hearing from you soon, and we wish you all the best with your book going forward.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That is wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe, eat well, look after your bodies, and much love and blessings from me. Catch you soon.